These are the forged aluminum upper control arms, and they are available for all 2004 through 2020 F-150s equipped with a 2 to 4 inch front end lift or level. Now, you should be checking out these upper control arms if you'd like to grab one of the more affordable aluminum options on site currently for your leveled or lifted F-150 to improve the ride quality, correct your ball joint angle, and prevent any binding or interference that you might be getting with those stock upper control arms still in place. Now, these options will combine that T6 aluminum with a high performance polyurethane bushing and replaceable ball joint, all for right around the low to mid $400 price point. So the big features here with these forged aluminum uppers will be twofold. First and foremost, you are getting a much stronger upper control arm that is designed to work with the F-150s that again have either been leveled or lifted from 2 to 4 inches. Now, it's designed this way due to the angle of the ball joint, which when installed does help correct that suspension geometry while allowing for factory alignment specs. Now, on top of the geometry, the design of the uppers also allows for complete travel or articulation, but without binding or interference, which can and will happen on aggressive front end lifts on F-150s with stock upper control arms still in place. Construction is also far superior to the stamped steel stockers due largely to the one-piece forged aluminum here, T6 aluminum to be exact, which is CNC machined into the final shape that you see here on the table with me today. Now, the forged arm is going to house a heavy-duty ball joint that is again removable if you ever needed to replace it due to high mileage or just general wear and tear, and you don't want to replace the entire arm by itself, which is a nice little feature. Now, on the chassis side, the forged arms will include brand new high-performance polyurethane bushings for more control through tougher terrain on and off-road. Finally, guys, the arms do receive dust covers here right on top to protect those ball joints. Underneath, you got those straight Zerk fittings that do allow you to easily grease the ball joints, and there are Zerk fittings for your polyurethane bushings here on the chassis side as well. Overall, you're just ultimately looking to extend the service life of not only the ball joint itself, but also the bushings here again on the chassis side. Now, coming in at or around that mid $400 price point, the forged options are currently one of your most affordable on the site when looking at a one-piece T6 forged aluminum upper for your rig. Now, if you don't need the extra strength or the beef of the aluminum option here, you can certainly find some other tubular steel options at a slightly more affordable price point. But regardless, a lot of options here on the site. Definitely check them out before making your final decision. All right, last but not least, let's get into the installation. And yes, these do feature a relatively simple bolt-on design here, but nevertheless, there is some elbow grease involved. Site's gonna call it a strong 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and roughly 4 hours or so to get everything in place from start to finish. But now to give you a better idea of how this one might go down on your F-150 at home, let's throw it out to the shop for our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
For this install, you will need various impacts, various ratchets, a pry bar, a soft mallet, 21mm wrench, 21 and 18mm ratcheting wrenches, a 7mm wrench, an extension, a 3/8 inch adapter if necessary, a swivel adapter, 8, 10, deep and shallow 18 and 21mm sockets, a caliper hanger tool, a bungee cord, a grease gun, and also not shown here is a jack and jack stands. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing some upper control arms on our F-150, but before we get started, we're going to send you to watch a quick video on how to remove your factory control arms, and we'll see you when you get back. Alrighty guys, so we've got our truck in the air, we've got the wheels off. Now this control arm that we're going to be installing is meant for a 6-inch lift, which is what we have on our truck. So we're going to pop our brake line brackets off first. That's going to give our brake line some slack and not keep them tense. We've got our 10mm socket on our impact. We'll pop the 10mm bolts off for each bracket. That one loose. I'll get this one up here as well. This one has a locator. Sometimes it's a little tough to get it out. There we go. And we're also going to remove our ABS line bracket from our knuckle. That is going to be an 8mm, so we'll grab our 8mm socket. So for our next step, we're going to remove our outer tie rod from our knuckle. We've got our 21mm socket. We're going to bring this nut down almost to where it's off. You want to leave a couple threads on, and we need to unseat the tie rod, and then we can remove the nut fully. Now, as you can see, we got pretty lucky with ours. It came unseated by itself. However, a lot of times these do get a little stuck. So in that case, what you want to do is grab a hammer or a ball joint tool, and you can smack this with a hammer a little bit and it should loosen it up, or take your ball joint tool and press it out. So we get our nut off, our tie rod out, and we'll just stick that nut right back on there so we can keep track of that. So our next step is going to be to unbolt our sway bar end link from our knuckle. That's going to allow this to drop down a little bit once we remove the strut nuts. So we've got our 18mm socket, and we'll remove this nut. Our next step is going to be to remove our 2 lower strut mounting nuts on our knuckle. So we've got our 18mm socket. Pop these off. Next, we can remove our sway bar end link. So now a lot of times it's easier to come from the top at your sway bar itself instead of the knuckle. So we've got our 18mm socket. We'll pop that off. Next, we can loosen up our upper ball joint nut for our upper control arm. So we've got our 18mm socket and swivel adapter with an extension on our impact. Get this in here. And we're going to leave that on a few threads again because it'll help catch the knuckle once we unseat our upper ball joint. All right, so before we separate our ball joint and get it out of our knuckle, we're going to put a bungee cord around our knuckle that's going to help support this as it drops down once we remove our upper control arm from it. We'll get this wrapped around. You want to make sure you're not pinching any of your lines when doing this. Just find a nice solid spot that's out of the way. What I'm going to do is wrap this around a few times. Put that in there. Now we're going to use our hammer and tap on our knuckle to unseat this ball joint. Now that we have this unseated, we'll fully remove our nut and get our upper control arm out of our knuckle. Now we're going to remove our upper strut mounting nuts, and that's going to allow us to remove our strut and access our upper control arm bolts. So we've got our 18mm ratcheting wrench, and we'll get these off. We do have one in the back here. Pop this line out if you need to, or you can just pull it up. Now, one thing you may run into, even on a lift of this size, it all depends on what brake lines and stuff you have on your vehicle. You may not have enough swing to get the strut out. So what we're going to do is take our caliper off and hang it off to the side, take our rotor off as well. That'll give us enough room and not overstretch our brake line. So we've got our 21mm socket on our impact. We'll remove the mounting bolts for the caliper, hang that up, and then we'll get the rotor off, and then that should give us enough room. First bolt out. Get our caliper off. hang this up off to the side. Now we'll come back to our strut and control arm, pry this down. And then we'll get our strut out. All right, so now we're gonna get our upper control arm mounting bolts out. So we've got an 18mm socket and small extension on our large ratchet and a 21mm wrench. We'll get these off. Now we'll do the same thing for our rear mounting bolt. You do want to watch out for your lines on this side. Once it gets loose, your control arm will drop, so you may need to reposition. This nut off. I'll remove this rear bolt, support our control arm, remove the front one, and you can pull your control arm out. Alrighty guys, now that we've got our factory control arms out, what we're gonna need to do before we install our new kit is to install the bushings and spacer inside of these before we get them on. Relatively simple to do. What you're gonna do is grab your provided bushing grease, open that up. And we're gonna grease our bushings before we install them. Get some on there. Make sure you give a good coat on the outside, and also we're gonna grease the inside where our spacer is gonna ride. Do a thin film on the inner part. So we're gonna get our bushings in place first. We'll get inner half in, outer half. Then you also want to grease your sleeve. Get this in. Now you may or may not need a soft mallet to get this all the way in. Sometimes they go in pretty smooth. Just like that one. So you want that to be nice and flush with both bushings. Then we'll do the same thing for our other side. All right, so now that we have our bushings and sleeves in, we're also gonna install our grease fittings. These are greasable bushings, which is great for service intervals. So we're gonna take our grease fittings, thread those in to each side. Then we're gonna use a 7mm wrench to tighten these down. Now you don't have to go crazy because these are tapered threads. Just make sure they're good and snug. You're also tightening into aluminum, so keep that in mind. Now once you have this control arm to this point, you want to do the same thing for the other side. We're not going to install our service cap for our ball joint yet because you will need to grease that once it's installed. We'll go over that in a minute. All right, so now that we have our control arms set up, we're going to begin installing them. So what we're going to do is line this up with the factory mounting locations. Now these are directional. You want to match the curvature up with the factory side. So we're on our driver's side. We're going to reuse our factory hardware. Now, these are going to be tight. Work it into position. So we can install our bolts. Then we'll reinstall our factory 21mm nuts. So now we'll get these back onto our bolts. Now we're going to snug down our nuts and bolts using our 18mm swivel socket and an extension on our impact and a 21mm wrench. Now you can kind of use your extension to hold this in an upward position, like so. And we'll do the same thing for the other side. Now we can begin getting our strut back in place, so we're going to get our upper mounting points in and loosely reinstall the mounting nuts so that'll hold it in position. Put that there. First nut on. Okay. Now we're going to get our lower mounting points back into our lower control arm. Again, as with taking it out, you want to be very careful not to hit your axle boot and rip that open. We're going to take a large pry bar, maneuver this. We can get under our control arm, pry down, work our strut in. Now once you get your studs seated, your control arm will come back up. You want to remove your pry bar. Now we're going to reinstall our factory 18mm nuts onto our mounting studs. And we'll tighten those back down with our 18mm socket. Now we're going to get our upper control arm mounted into our knuckle. So we've got our bungee cord off, got our knuckle swung back over. We'll line this up. Now you notice we only snugged our hardware down. We haven't fully tightened it yet. Get this in, and we'll install our provided lock nut. Now before we tighten that nut down, we're going to install and tighten down our outer tie rod. That's going to hold our knuckle in place, make it a little easier to tighten this. So we'll get this lined up, drop back into place, reinstall our 21mm nut. And we'll tighten that back down again with our 21mm socket. Now we're going to tighten down our upper control arm ball joint nut with our 21mm socket and our ratchet. Next, we're going to tighten down our upper strut mounting nuts. We've got our 18mm ratcheting wrench, and yours may be different depending on the lift or struts you have. Ours is an 18. Once you got that first one tightened down, you want to do the same thing for the other two. Now we can come back and further tighten down our upper control arm mounting bolts. So we've got an 18mm wrench and a 21mm wrench. We'll get on there and tighten these down. Alrighty guys, so now that we have our upper control arm installed, we have left the service cap off because we're gonna need to grease our upper ball joint before we install that cap. You definitely wanna do that before you start driving on it. Your bushings for your mounts are obviously pre-greased as we did on assembly, so you'll just need to grease those at the recommended manufacturer service intervals, but this you will need to grease initially. So we've got our grease gun, we'll hook that up. Pump some grease in, just until our boot fills up quite nicely. You don't want to over grease that and pop a boot. We'll pull that off. Now once we have our ball joint grease, we're going to install our cap. So this does come with a O-ring. We'll get that around the inner part of that cap. Set that in place. We're just going to give it a few soft taps with a mallet just to set it in. Make sure that's nice and flush. So next we're going to get our sway bar end link nut back on. Now you want to do this after you've gotten both sides to this point because you want to be able to move your sway bar if you need to. So we'll get that back on, and then back down. And we'll tighten that back down with our 18 mil socket and swivel. So now we can reinstall our brake caliper. So we're going to get it in position, reinstall our 21 millimeter bolts and tighten those down. Get this lined up. Get our first bolt in. Get our upper one in. And we'll tighten those down with our 21 millimeter socket. After we've got that in, we'll reinstall our brake line and ABS brackets along our knuckle and up at our control arm mount. So we'll start with our smaller bracket with our 8 millimeter socket. And we'll switch out to our 10 millimeter socket for our two other brackets. You want to get that locator back in on this one. Make sure it seats correctly. Get our upper bracket back in. Now once you have this side complete, you can do the same thing for the other side, and always remember to torque all of your hardware down to the manufacturer recommended specs. Alrighty folks, that about wraps up our review and install of our aluminum forged front upper control arms for a 2 to 4 inch lift on your 04 to 20 F-150 excluding the Raptor. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.